without getting into your story, I mean, at some point you went home to be with the kids. Now you got back into business. When you've got a spouse that may not be working, and you got a spouse who's working, and I hate that because we know that the spouse is working.
Of course.
Okay.
Right.
My point is, I'm just hearing people send me an email right now.
Yeah.
I'm talking about working in the home versus working in the workplace. How important is it to make sure that that one spouse, let's call it the stay-at-home mom, it's an easy one for people to see. She's got dreams, she's got passions, one of which she's choosing to spend her time on with those kiddos right now. Talk about the importance of that part of the retreat and the conversation, because especially if Jay's winning, okay, in the workplace, and you're dealing with diapers and tantrums,
it's hard.
It's not easy, is it?
It's really hard.
Just share both
Especially
of you there.
if you were, and most women are now who have children, if you were a professional person.
Before.
Yeah,
you were winning.
And, you know, we live in a society where in America, where most of your worth is tied up in your work.
There's no question.
You know, when you meet somebody new, what do you do?
Right.
You know, I used to tell people when I was a stay-at-home mom that I was a trophy wife as a joke. And
which you were, come on.
Obviously.
Let's own that.
Still am.
Let's own it,
Hello.
yes. That's right.
Yeah. And so I think your worth is tied up into that. And I know that when Jay was working at Keller Williams, his and I said this to your guys out there today, his mindset was getting bigger, right? His thinking was getting bigger. You know, when you work at a company like Dave Ramsey, you're constantly thinking bigger. You're wanting to grow yourself. And if you've got somebody at home who isn't surrounded by those big thinkers all day long, you're with kids and whatever, that's a disconnect, right? And this is a way to come together and for the person who's in an environment like that to share that with that person so they don't feel left out and isolated. You know, it's like, hey, come along with me on this journey.
Yeah.
There's a flip side of that too. I think a lot of times the person who is the wage earner gets kind of the right of way on a lot of things, which is not fair at all. But when you set up the goal setting retreat, so we set someday goals and 5-year goals and 1-year goals. Those are the 3 areas that we look at, like where we're going to be way out in 5 years and 1 year. And the fact that we both do our preparation separately. So even when she was a stay-at-home mom, she was writing down someday, 5-year, and 1 year. We both come together and try to merge.
That's right.
And so like her voice is exactly equal in that situation. Right. And we're now negotiating, like how do we support each other on these 2 journeys?
Yeah. Right.
And, you know, I remember when she was heading back to the workforce, you know, she got the opportunity to make sure I understood what jobs I was getting back. Because there were jobs that she took over when she stayed home, but when she went back to the workforce. And so it just gives us a place where we can kind of have an equal playing field and both get our agenda on the table. And then we sort it out. And it's always a little messy, but it gives you just a chance to sort it out.
Well, I'm glad you said that. I want to lead you all somewhere right there because you said it is messy and it is messy.
Very.
And Stacy and I have not been this intentional, but we have done this many, many times. And I remember, you know, when she's back in the workforce, she's killing it, you know, because we've got some goals and things like that. You get this. But I remember when I was working my way up the broadcasting ladder and, you know, so we'd spend time talking about those goals and then, you know, and she's kind of supporting everything. But then it was a little messy. But then the payoff for this would be for us when we'd have conversations about us together as a family. So yes, I had some professional goals. At that time, her only goal was just awesome kids. And she was killing it. And she was winning. But then when we moved the conversation down the road, and even though it might have been messy, here's where I'm going to lead you, it's so worth it.
Oh, yeah.
Because when we got to the point where we were dreaming as a family, as a couple, that's when the payoff has always been great for us. I want you to just take that. Take it and run with it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think a great example of that is like, do we want to be able to pay for our kids to go to college? And what does that look like? And what are our financial goals around that? And, you know, for Jay and I, this relationship has always been our primary. You know, I love my kids, but like this is number one.
That's right.
And what does our life look like when our kids are gone? I know that 80% of all the time I'm going to spend with my kids is, you know, before they graduate from high school. And so what does that look like? And what does our world look like? And yeah, we love to travel. Right. So how do we create enough passive income so that we can choose to work or not? You know, so it's like having those really big goals and being intentional around it.
Well, I mean, I just think if you acknowledge year after year that you have all these goals, they're not always perfectly in a line. And some years, like nothing gets done on them. I can't tell you how many things we thought we were going to do in 5 years that the next year we pull those up and we look at them throughout the year too. And we're like, we really didn't do anything on this. Is this really important to us? Like, no. And we give ourselves permission to just cross some stuff out. It doesn't feel like failure. It feels like focus.
Yes.
And then there are things that we fail at, but we refuse to put on there. We won't take it off. Take off. And it's like, for me, I wanted to have a ranch. And that was really about not me having a bunch of land to maintain or having cattle or something like that. It was about, I grew up in Tennessee, being able to go outdoors with my dad. And in Texas, there's not much public land. And I wanted to have that for me and my son, Gus.
Right.
And it stayed on our goals for like 3-4 years, nothing happening.
At least, yeah.
And it was hardly a priority for Wendy. But when that opportunity showed up, that became a conversation that we were actually able to have because we found a partner that wanted to go 50-50 with us. And suddenly it was an opportunity. Yeah. But because we've been talking about it in this kind of
year after year after year, I could see it on Jay's goals. So it wasn't just like a whim, right? Sometimes we have these things inside our heart, but we don't share them with our partners. And so when an opportunity comes up, it feels like a whim. I've always wanted a whatever. Oh, well, really? Is it like a big life crisis or what's going on here?
That's a very good point.
And like, no. And so like seeing it year after year after year, I was like, okay, this is important to you.
Yeah.
It's not like every year we just show up and get to congratulate ourselves for checking every box.
Right.
There's a lot of them that some things are happening really well, and sometimes we have to confront the fact that we're not making progress and we really want to. Right. But that's like part of the messiness that you actually kind of get used to. I mean, a lot of big success, I think, is just a lot of failures you survive.
Failing through it.